Hello, this is Sky. You're hearing my own voice. I'll be here with you until sleep. You don't need to listen closely. You can drift off whenever you like. There's nothing to get right tonight. For now, just let yourself be held by the sound of my voice. Let's begin. If this podcast has been keeping you company at night and you'd like to support me directly, membership is a beautiful way to do that. It includes ad-free listening and exclusive sleep stories, and it helps me continue sharing these calm little spaces with you. The link is in the description. However this day has been, whether it has felt full or hurried or wonderfully ordinary, or maybe a little heavier than you expected, it has already brought you here. And here is enough. There's nowhere else to arrive. Nothing waiting to be completed before rest is allowed. Maybe your body already knows this. Sometimes it remembers before the thinking mind does. So there is no need to persuade yourself to relax. No need to chase sleep. No need to settle in any particular way. Instead, I simply invite you to notice that something is already supporting you. The bed beneath you, the blanket, the pillow, the air around your skin, the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, whether you notice it clearly or hardly at all. Everything can simply be as it is. Tonight, we're returning to the old manor. By now, it may feel a little familiar. Maybe you've wandered through its gardens, rested in its library, stood quietly inside the greenhouse, sat beside the music room window. Or maybe this is the very first time you've stepped through its gates. Either way is completely welcome. The manor doesn't seem to mind. It receives everyone in exactly the same gentle way. No expectations, no urgency, just quiet welcome. This evening, the light is softer than before. The day is slowly folding itself away. The sun has begun its gentle descent, stretching long golden ribbons across the lawns. The air carries that particular stillness that often arrives toward the end of a summer day. Not silence exactly, just a feeling that everything has started speaking a little more softly. Maybe you can hear distant birds, the leaves moving together somewhere far away, the faintest call of a rook returning home. You find yourself once again standing before the great front step. The old stone seems to glow warmly in the evening light. Behind you lie the gardens. Ahead of you, the familiar doorway. But tonight, instead of stepping inside, your attention drifts elsewhere, off to one side of the manor. A winding gravel path curves gently away. You might not have noticed it before. It disappears behind old yew hedges and ancient chestnut trees. It isn't hidden, just quiet, as though it has been patiently waiting until the right evening to introduce itself. Maybe tonight is that evening. You begin following the path. Your footsteps are unhurried. The gravel makes the softest sound beneath your shoes, not loud enough to disturb anything, just enough to remind you that you're moving. One gentle step, then another. Nothing to rush toward, nothing to leave behind. As you walk, the gardens slowly give way to wider spaces. The flower beds become meadow grasses. The clipped hedges soften into old hawthorn. Wildflowers grow wherever they choose. Buttercups nod gently among long stems. Oxeye daisies catch the last warm light. A few bees continue their evening work, moving lazily from flower to flower. No one seems in a hurry, not the flowers, not the insects, not even the breeze. Maybe there's something comforting about places that don't measure time in quite the same way we do. Ahead, the stable house slowly comes into view. It isn't grand in the way the manor is. Its beauty feels quieter. Built from mellow stone that has weathered through generations. The roof is covered with old clay tiles, each one carrying slightly different shades, gathered over many seasons of rain and sunlight. Large wooden doors stand open. Their hinges have darkened with age. Above them sits a simple clock. It stopped many years ago. No one ever repaired it. No one really needed to. Life here has always followed other rhythms. Morning light, evening shadows, changing seasons, bird song, rain, the slow certainty of caring for living things. You pause for just a moment outside. There's no pressure to go in. Sometimes, standing at a threshold is its own kind of resting. Maybe there are places in life where we are always trying to cross into the next thing, the next task, the next answer, the next understanding. But here, the doorway itself feels complete. You can simply stand, breathing, looking, allowing your eyes to wander over old stone walls. The climbing roses curling around one corner. The tiny swallows dipping beneath the eaves. Their nests tucked safely high above the doors. They come back each spring, leaving, returning, leaving again, always somehow remembering the way. A gentle breeze carries familiar scents, fresh hay, sun-warmed timber, leather that has been carefully looked after, the faint sweetness of apples stored somewhere nearby. Earth, grass, clean air. It isn't one single fragrance. It's a quiet collection. The smell of a place that has been cared for patiently over many years. Maybe there are places that hold kindness in the very air. This feels like one of them. You step inside. The temperature changes almost immediately. The warmth of the evening gives way to cool stone and shaded timber. The light becomes softer. Golden shafts stream through high windows, catching tiny floating specks of dust. They drift lazily through the air, never quite settling, never quite disappearing, simply moving wherever the light invites them. You find yourself watching them for a while. Tiny galaxies suspended in stillness. Sometimes the smallest movements are the easiest to rest beside. The stable house seems to breathe in its own slow rhythm. Wood gently settling, a pigeon somewhere high in the rafters, the distant rustle of straw. Nothing demanding your attention. Everything simply existing together. There is room here, room to arrive exactly as you are. And maybe, without needing to change anything at all, you can simply wander a little further inside. You remain for a little while just inside the doorway. There's no reason to hurry further. Sometimes it feels enough simply to become familiar with a place before moving through it. Maybe you've noticed how different spaces seem to have their own way of welcoming us. Some invite conversation. Some seem to encourage movement. Others ask almost nothing at all. This stable house feels like one of those quieter places. It doesn't ask you to become anyone different. It doesn't expect you to admire it. It simply offers itself just as it is. As your eyes grow accustomed to the softer light, more details begin to appear. Rows of wooden stalls line each side of the long stone passage. The timber has been worn smooth over many years, not polished in the way furniture might be polished, rather softened by countless gentle touches. Hands resting for a moment on the gate, a shoulder leaning while someone paused to watch the rain, a horse brushing its neck against the wood. Time has a way of smoothing things, not by taking anything away, but by returning to them again and again with quiet patience. Maybe there is something reassuring about that. You begin to walk slowly along the passageway. The stone beneath your feet feels cool and solid. Your footsteps are gentle. The sound travels only a little way before being absorbed by the old walls and the thick timber beams overhead. It is a place that seems to know how to hold sound without echoing it back too loudly, as though everything here has learned the value of softness. One of the stall doors stands open. Inside is fresh straw, spread in loose golden circles across the floor. The evening light falls across it in long, warm ribbons. The straw almost seems to glow. You pause outside the doorway, There's no need to go in. Just seeing the space feels enough. It has been prepared with care. Everything needed is already here. Water, fresh bedding, a quiet place to rest. There is something deeply comforting about a place made ready before it is needed. Maybe you've experienced that somewhere in your own life. Someone setting out a chair before you arrived. A meal quietly waiting. A light left on. Fresh sheets on a bed. A warm drink placed gently beside you. Small gestures that say, there is already room for you here. You continue walking. Above you, the rafters rise into gentle shadows. The beams are old oak, darkened with age. You notice tiny nests tucked carefully into the corners where the beams meet. Swallows. Their tiny homes balanced with astonishing care. Made from mud, small twigs, feathers, bits of dry grass. So many ordinary things gathered together. And somehow they become shelter. Maybe that feels true of people too. A life is rarely built from one extraordinary moment. More often, it grows through many small kindnesses. A conversation, a smile, a morning walk, a favorite cup, an evening spent listening. Small things gathered patiently until one day they begin to feel like home. The stable house seems full of these quiet reminders. Nothing here is grand. Nothing is trying to impress. Everything simply serves its purpose with quiet dignity. Hooks hold bridles. Shelves hold folded blankets. A broom rests against the wall, exactly where it belongs. Lanterns hang neatly from wooden pegs. Each object seems content, simply being useful. There is something deeply peaceful about usefulness without urgency. Nothing here appears busy, yet everything feels cared for. You notice an old wooden bench beneath one of the windows. Its surface has become beautifully smooth. Maybe countless people have sat here before. Someone waiting for the rain to pass. Someone watching over a horse through the night. Someone enjoying a few quiet moments before beginning the day's work. You imagine sitting there now. The bench feels steady beneath you. Not soft, but deeply comfortable in its honesty. The window beside you stands slightly open. Evening air drifts inside, carrying the scent of wild grasses. Somewhere outside, a blackbird sings one last song before night. The notes arrive clearly, then dissolve into the gathering dusk. Nothing tries to hold on to them. The song finishes exactly when it finishes. There is no sense that it should have continued longer. Maybe there is something to learn from endings that arrive gently. A bird doesn't apologize for finishing its song. The daylight doesn't resist becoming evening. The flowers don't struggle against closing their petals. They simply follow the rhythm that belongs to them. I wonder what it might feel like if just for these few moments you didn't have to hold yourself quite so tightly either. Nothing needs fixing tonight. Nothing needs solving before sleep is allowed. Your thoughts can continue wandering if they wish. Or maybe they'll begin slowing down on their own. There's no right rhythm, only your rhythm. You stand again and continue exploring. Near the end of the passage hangs an old leather saddle. Its color has deepened over the years into rich shades of chestnut and honey. The stitching remains careful and strong. It has clearly been looked after, not because it is expensive, but because someone understood that care itself has value. You reach out and rest your fingertips lightly against the smooth leather. It feels warm from the day's lingering heat, strong, supple, still ready to be used. There is something quietly beautiful about objects that have aged well, not because they escaped wear, but because they were loved through it. Maybe people are a little like that too. The experiences that leave their marks don't always diminish us. Sometimes they soften us, deepen us, teach us where gentleness matters most. Nearby rests an old grooming brush. Its wooden handle has become rounded by years of use. The bristles are slightly uneven now. You imagine someone standing patiently beside a horse, brushing slowly, not rushing the task. Long, steady strokes. Not because the horse demanded perfection, simply because caring can be a language all its own. Sometimes words aren't needed. Presence is enough. Hands moving slowly, breathing together, sharing quiet. Outside, you hear a very soft sound. A horse shifting its weight. Curious, you wander toward the open stable doors. Beyond them lies a small paddock surrounded by weathered fencing. The grass moves gently in the evening breeze. Two horses graze peacefully beneath an ancient oak tree. Neither seems concerned by your presence. They continue eating with slow, deliberate movements. Every so often, one lifts its head. Its ears turn toward some distant sound that you cannot hear. Then, just as calmly, it returns to grazing. There's no urgency, no performance, only complete attention to this single moment. Grass, evening, companionship, open sky. Maybe animals remind us that awareness doesn't have to be complicated. They seem to notice everything while worrying about very little. You lean lightly against the wooden fence. The timber feels warm where it has held the afternoon sun. One horse wanders a little closer. Not all the way, just close enough that you can appreciate the quiet intelligence in its eyes. Its breathing is slow. Its coat catches the last golden light. For a few moments, the two of you simply share the same peaceful evening. Nothing needs to happen. There's no lesson hidden here. No message waiting to be understood. Just two living beings sharing the same gentle air. Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes simply being alongside another life can remind us that we belong to this wider world too. Not separate from it, part of it. A breeze stirs the leaves overhead. The oak answers with the softest whisper. The grasses lean together. The swallows make one final sweeping circle above the stable roof before settling into their nests. The whole evening seems to be preparing itself for rest. Not suddenly, not all at once, but gradually, as though every living thing understands that endings can arrive slowly. There is no need to rush toward sleep. Maybe sleep, like evening itself, comes most kindly when we simply allow ourselves to become a little quieter, one gentle moment at a time. And with that feeling beside you, you turn once more toward the stable house, ready to wander a little deeper into its quiet corners. You leave the paddock slowly, not because there's anywhere else you need to be, simply because your attention begins to wander back toward the stable house itself. The horses continue grazing without concern. One flicks its tail lazily. Another lifts its head for just a moment before returning to the sweet evening grass. There is something comforting about knowing that life continues, even when we look away. Not everything depends upon our attention. The world has its own gentle rhythm. As you step once more beneath the old wooden doorway, the cooler air welcomes you back. The scent of hay and timber seems even softer now. Outside, the evening is slowly becoming dusk. Inside, the light has taken on that beautiful quality that belongs only to old buildings at the end of the day. Nothing is brightly lit. Nothing is hidden. Everything seems wrapped in a quiet golden glow. You notice another doorway near the back of the stable house. It isn't grand. In fact, you might have walked past it without seeing it. The wooden door stands slightly open. Its latch has become smooth with age. You rest your hand against it for a moment before gently pushing it wider. Beyond is a small tack room. The room feels almost like a tiny library, not of books, but of care. Shelves line the walls. Leather bridles hang neatly from wooden pegs. Blankets are folded into careful squares. Polished boots stand quietly together beneath a bench. Everything has its place. Not because someone insists upon order, but because returning each thing to its place feels like another small act of kindness. Maybe you've known spaces like that. A kitchen where someone quietly washes the last cup before bed. A favorite chair with a folded blanket waiting. A workbench where every tool is gently returned before the day is finished. There is something deeply settling about places where care has become a habit rather than a task. You wander slowly around the room. A lantern hangs from an old iron hook. Its glass has tiny ripples that catch the fading light. A pair of worn gloves rests beside a folded length of rope. A little wooden box sits on a shelf with its lid slightly open. Inside are polished buttons, a few horseshoes, a smooth pebble, an old pocket watch that no longer keeps the time. Little treasures gathered without hurry. Objects that might seem ordinary to anyone else, yet somehow precious because someone chose to keep them. Your eyes settle on the lantern. You imagine it being lit on winter evenings, its warm glow spilling softly across the floor while snow falls quietly outside. Someone moving slowly through the stable, checking that everyone is warm. A reassuring hand resting against a horse's neck. Fresh water being poured into buckets. Blankets adjusted. Quiet words spoken into warm breath. You find yourself smiling. There's no reason for it. No particular story. Just a small feeling of warmth somewhere inside. Like noticing the first candle lit in a dark room. Not bright enough to change everything, yet enough to soften the space around it. Sometimes our inner world seems to work like that too. A single gentle moment can quietly change the atmosphere within us without effort. Leaving the tack room, you continue along a narrow stone passage. The stable house seems larger than you first imagined. Not because it is enormous, but because each small space opens into another. Ahead, an old half door stands open. Beyond it is an empty stall. You step inside. The space is beautifully simple. Fresh straw lies across the floor. The walls are warm stone. A small window looks west toward the fields. Evening light enters gently through the opening, painting quiet patterns across the straw. Dust drifts lazily through the golden air. You notice how still everything feels. Not empty, held. There is a difference. Sometimes emptiness can feel lonely. This feels spacious instead, as though the room itself is resting, waiting without expectation, content exactly as it is. Maybe you sit down for a little while. The straw is surprisingly soft beneath you. It carries the gentle scent of summer fields, of sunshine gathered into long grass. You lean back against the smooth wooden wall. The timber feels steady behind you, solid, supportive, never asking anything from you. For these few moments, maybe there's nowhere you need to go. Nothing waiting beyond this room. Nothing left unfinished. Only this quiet evening. The gentle light. This simple place. Outside the little window, the colors are beginning to change. The gold of evening softens into lavender. The fields become quieter. The shadows grow longer. One by one, the sounds of the day begin to settle. A distant bird, the gentle rustle of leaves, the quiet breathing of horses nearby. Nothing disappears suddenly. Everything seems to fade with remarkable kindness. Maybe there's an invitation in that. Not to let go of everything at once. Not to empty your mind. Not to force yourself into sleep. But simply to allow this day to become a little softer around its edges. One thought settling beside another. One feeling finding a little more space. One breath following the next. Like daylight slowly becoming dusk. Without effort. Without resistance. Simply because that is what evenings know how to do. As the last of the evening light lingers at the little window, you allow yourself to rest here just a little longer. Before making your way back toward the stable door, ready to step out into the gathering night, you remain for just a little while longer. There's no signal that it is time to leave. No clock chiming. No voice calling from somewhere beyond the stable yard. Only the quiet feeling that this gentle visit has become complete in its own way. Not because everything has been seen. There will always be another corner to notice. Another changing light. Another season to return to. But for this evening, maybe this is enough. You slowly arise from where you've been resting. The straw settles quietly behind you. You brush a few golden strands from your sleeve, smiling at how they seem reluctant to let go. Not clinging, just accompanying you for another moment. Then they drift softly back to the floor, returning to where they belong. You pause at the doorway of the stall before stepping out. The room remains exactly as you found it, calm, patient, ready to welcome whoever might next wander through. Some places don't seem to mind how long you've been away. When you return, they simply open themselves once again. Perhaps you've known that. A favorite woodland path, a familiar coastline, a garden bench, a room in someone's home, or maybe even a feeling inside yourself that waits quietly until you remember how to find it again. Maybe this stable house can become one of those places too. A place you can visit whenever you need nothing more than a little steadiness, a little quiet, a reminder that gentleness rarely announces itself loudly. You begin walking once more along the stone passage. The stable feels even quieter now. The swallows have settled, into their nests high among the rafters. The lanterns remain unlit. They don't need to shine tonight. There is still enough light lingering in the sky. The old wood seems to glow softly from within. The stone walls hold the warmth they gathered during the afternoon. Everything appears content simply to rest. You reach the wide stable doors. For a moment, you simply stand beneath the old wooden beam overhead. Beyond it, evening has deepened. The sky has become softer now, blue giving way to violet. Violet slowly welcoming the first hints of night. The air feels cooler against your skin, fresh, still, carrying the gentle fragrance of wild grasses and distant fields. You step outside. The gravel path waits just where you left it. Nothing asks you to hurry home. The manor house can wait. The gardens can wait. Even the story itself seems willing to slow down a little more. So maybe you pause one last time beside the paddock. The horses are quieter now. One stands peacefully beneath the old oak tree. Another has settled comfortably nearby. Their breathing is slow, their bodies completely at ease. They don't seem to be anticipating tomorrow. They are simply here, held by this evening, supported by the familiar earth beneath their feet. There is something deeply reassuring about their calm presence. Without trying, they seem to remind you that rest belongs to every living creature, not only to those who have finished everything, not only to those who have earned it, simply because living beings need rest. Maybe that includes you too, exactly as you are. A gentle breeze moves through the long grasses. They lean together like waves across a quiet sea. The oak responds with the softest rustling. Far above, the first evening star appears. Not suddenly, just quietly, as though it has always been there, waiting for the light to soften enough to be seen. Maybe some parts of ourselves are a little like that. Not absent, simply easier to notice once everything else grows quieter. You begin following the winding path back toward the manor. The gravel crunches softly beneath each step. One step, then another. Nothing rushed, nothing left behind. As you walk, the stable house slowly becomes smaller behind you. Its warm stone walls blend gently into the evening landscape. Soon only the roof remains visible above the hedgerow, then only the tops of the old trees, and finally, just the quiet feeling of the place remains with you. Sometimes we leave a place physically, while something of its atmosphere continues walking beside us. Not something we have to remember, more like something that remembers us. The meadow is beginning to glow with the last colors of sunset. Wildflowers have folded many of their petals for the night. The bees have long since returned home. Tiny moths now drift where butterflies flew earlier. Everything has its own time, its own rhythm. No flower worries that another blooms differently. No tree wonders whether it should become a stream. The owl does not apologize for arriving after the robin has finished singing. Each life simply belongs to itself. Maybe there's something deeply peaceful in remembering that your own rhythm belongs to you as well. There's no need to measure it against anyone else's. No need to hurry because someone else is moving more quickly. No need to slow down because someone else seems quieter. Your life has its own seasons, its own mornings, its own evenings, its own gentle unfolding. Ahead, the manor house comes gradually into view once again. Its windows glow softly with warm lamplight. The climbing roses rest quietly against the old stone walls. The garden seems to welcome the coming night. You don't feel the need to go inside. Not tonight. The moon has begun its slow climb. The stars multiply almost without being noticed. One, then another, then so many that counting would no longer make sense. You simply allow them to be there. Maybe you notice how different the world feels at night. The details become fewer, the outlines gentler. The imagination naturally fills in what cannot be seen. If sleep has already begun to arrive around the edges of your awareness, that is welcome. Everything belongs exactly as it is. The old manor, the gardens, the greenhouse, the library, the music room, and now the stable house. Each one has offered something a little different. Not answers, simply places where quiet attention could rest for a while. Maybe that is all we ever really need. Small places of welcome. Moments where nothing is expected of us. gentle reminders that we don't have to become someone else before we're allowed to rest. As this evening together comes to a close, I hope you carry with you something of the stable house. Maybe it's the scent of warm hay. Maybe it's the quiet breathing of the horses. Maybe it's the smooth wood beneath your fingertips. Or perhaps it's simply the feeling of being in a place where everything moved slowly enough that your own thoughts could soften without anyone asking them to. Whatever has stayed with you is enough. Thank you for wandering here with me. Thank you for allowing this old place to keep us company for a little while. And if you find yourself returning another evening, the stable house will be just as you left it. The doors resting open, the swallows tucked safely beneath the rafters, the horses grazing peacefully beyond the fence, the old oak standing exactly where it has always stood, waiting without expectation, welcoming without condition. For now, I'll leave you here with the quiet of the evening. May the night hold you gently. May your body continue finding its own way toward rest. May your dreams, if they come, be kind. Sleep well, dear friend. Until next time, good night.